We are back with more deliberations of votes and awards.
And things.
Some things that are just really desktop accessories, not really games. But maybe there's games there. I don't know. I need to download desktop.
I like desktop accessories.
I need to
Anything
download
can be a
desktop
game
Ricardo.
if you will it enough.
But anyway, we're here to determine the best strategy game of 2020. Strategery. So what you got? Who wants to go first?
Oh man, this is
a lot of threes. A lot of games that end with the number 3 here.
I have not. Well, I have not played this, but I would think there'd be a good case to be made for Empire of Sin, which we just reviewed earlier this week.
Romero Games.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, that game is a lot of things. And not necessarily all of them work the best, but it is very, very interesting in the way they come together. So 4X comes up in that game because there's a lot of management to it. Let's start at the top. You play a gangster leader in 1920s Chicago in the era of prohibition, when the federal government is cracking down on booze and speakeasies and illicit alcohol business is basically the moneymaker in the underworld. As such, you have characters like Al Capone that are actually selectable faction leaders in this game. There are other some of his rivals are faction leaders in this game. They represent the Irish Mafia. There is Polish, Spanish, Mexican. Actually, even John Romero's great grandmother, was apparently a criminal overlord in her day, and she is actually in this game as a faction leader. But every single one of the characters has a combat specialty to them, a business specialty, and a diplomacy specialty, which kind of makes up the 3 major components of this game. The goal is to take over parts of Chicago little by little, turn them into businesses of your sort of criminal gangster network, make the most money, come up against other gangster leaders, either make truces with them or outright destroy them, and by the end of the game, pretty much take over Chicago and its underworld booze trade. So it comes down to you have sort of the overworld map where you take over buildings and you fund them, turn them into either speakeasies, brothels, breweries, and upgrade them with things like guards, alcohol production quality, word of mouth that gets people coming to your places, and deference to keep the cops off, keep the cops from raiding your places. And then you have an element where you'll when you need to come up against a building that somebody is squatting on or another gangster owns, it'll go into this XCOM combat mode where your gangster leader and the henchmen that are with them will go up against whoever's inside with in a turn-based strategy shooter combat thing. And then aside from that, there's some RPG questing elements in this game. Well, I would say quest elements in this game. Besides having the overall goal of taking over Chicago, every character has every faction leader has a personal quest line. So for this character that I played, Mabel Riley, she's part of the Irish mob, and when the game starts off for her husband has just died in a car bomb, and she is taken over the gang, and there are people in her gang that believe she did it, and so she's got to root out rogue elements of her gang while also trying to figure out who killed her husband and why. And so there'll be missions associated with that, in addition to running your business and expanding your empire. And other characters have different faction missions based on the character themselves. Empire Sin it's good at a lot of things, but I don't know if it's the best at everything, at anything.
Well, how does it compare to what was that other game that you reviewed this year?
Desperados 3.
Well, yeah,
Desperados 3.
There was another one on top of that. That was the third one as well.
Crusader Kings 3.
Crusader Kings 3.
Crusader Kings.
Wasteland 3.
Yeah, that's a lot of strategy games that were the third strategy game.
A lot of threes, which means there's no Valve here.
I really enjoyed playing. I played Desperados at Judges Week a few years. I think, God, was it 2 years ago now? Probably. It's really fun, and it definitely is a strategy game. But it's kind of old school too.
Desperados 3 is my favorite game out of any of these nominees here, and I'll go to bat for that whole hog. The sheer depth of maps and scenarios in Desperados 3. First off, it has maybe my favorite strategy level design out of any of these games. Every map in Desperados 3 is just a menagerie of opportunity, from like elevation to like special interactions to just like
being able to throw a coin.
The characters themselves. This is a Commandos style game for those who don't know. It's hard as hell, and the fact that you it's a mix between real-time strategy and you can stop time at any point to consider your decisions and put actions in. So the mix of those things coming together makes for a game where it's like you will fail so much because there are so many bad guys in every level, and you only ever command 1 to 5 people at any given time. And if any one of those 5 people die, you lose. So they put a quick save feature in the game that is like easily the single most easy to access and also useful tool in the entire game, because you can literally tap F5 to save it and take a snapshot of the scenario at any given point. Tap F6 to load back to that point.
Yep.
It's like it gives you so much opportunity to experiment with everything at your disposal and figure out the best path forward.
And it has like a kind of charming old school PC game vibe to it, with like the save mechanic and that load mechanic and how fast it does that. But yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, speaking of that, like I was gonna vote for Wasteland 3, but now that I'm thinking about it, since I played Desperados 3 and I read TJ's review, it seems like that has a lot more strategic elements than Wasteland 3. Wasteland 3 may have more like options on how you want to tackle a problem or like how you want to build your character or your team comp, but this one is definitely more of like strategy kind of. It's almost like puzzle strategy, these situations they put you in Desperados 3, where like Wasteland 3 you can almost shoot your way to every situation if you want to.
Disagree. Save scumming is not a strength for a strategy game.
There's not a single thing that you can brute force in Desperados 3. Not even saving. You have to make the right choices. And like there, to a degree, there is achievement for not saving throughout the scenario. Like, yes, somebody that doesn't want to take on the challenge will save the hell out of their game and like take everything step by step until they get the right answer. But the game also incentivizes not doing that and figuring out the solution and taking it and being methodical until you get the right answer and like one seamless go. That said, these scenarios are also like 30 to 50 minutes long. Like, they are very, very long levels of missions. I really appreciate Desperados 3 on like every level, from how much it made me think about how I tackle everything, to the visual design, to the mechanical design, to the the way it challenges and the way that it can be as easy or as hard as you want it to be.
Josh, do you want to make a case for Wasteland 3? Because it seems like you're.
I got to.
It seems
I got
like you're
to.
chomping at the bit here.
Yeah, no, I got to. TJ, you just you mentioned. I'm gonna call it what it is because this is what it is considered with strategy games. Save scumming, quick saving, quick loading, doing that constantly. It's considered save scumming. It's completely up to the player if they want to do it, but I don't think it's fair to consider it a strength of the game, which you did at first. But you kind of walked back on that in the last part of your argument, which I see the point that you're making with it. But as far as what Greg said, there's so much in Wasteland 3 that is about more than just brute forcing your way through. Yeah, you can brute force your way through the levels if you want, but you're not going to get the best outcome. You know, getting the best outcome, like TJ said in Desperados 3, is about taking your time, looking at all the options, figuring out what the best option is, doing the things that you need to do, seeing if you have a party that's even set up for that kind of stuff. Like, there's so much in Wasteland 3 that requires you to think ahead about problems that you don't even know you have yet, which to me is kind of the bread and butter of a strategy game. Like, it's a game that challenges you to always be thinking ahead, even while you're trying to solve the problem that's in front of you right now. And the amount of freedom that you have in Wasteland 3 to solve problems the way that you think is best, and to see that freedom actually mean something in the way that the rest of the game plays out, is something that no other strategy game I know of offers at the moment, which I think is a huge boon. Like, it's a strategy game that gives you this best outcome you can take, but it's not a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. There's still story. There's still a way for it all to play out and for you to make an impact on the world with the strategic decisions that you make. Yes, team comp is important, but it's also important the steps that you take, the decisions that you make. Like, all of that's important. It doesn't just come down to what characters you have in your party, or, you know, what people you ally with. Like, it all comes down to the nitty gritty, like what you're doing when you're out there in the world exploring and taking on the situations. And yeah, no, I mean, I just don't. Desperados 3, I haven't played it personally. I've watched some of it. It looks great. It looks fantastic. But to me, it just doesn't offer the same level of depth that Wasteland 3 does. Like, to give you essentially a sandbox strategy game where you can literally go in and kill the main bad guy right at the beginning of the game if you want to. It's your choice. Like, it's all up to you. It's all up to the decisions that you want to make, how you want to shape that world within Wasteland 3. And I just don't think that any other game in the strategy genre, or really any other genre, has really offered that same level of freedom and depth in the choices that you make.
I think the strengths that you're speaking to, Josh, are because it's an RPG at its core. You know what I mean? That's why I feel it's kind of like almost unfair to compare the two, because they're both strategy games, but that game is more of an RPG than a strategy game. I mean, it has strategic elements, but building your loadout, your characters, the decisions are huge in that game. They all reflect the RPG aspect of it more so than the strategy aspect.
I disagree, Greg. I mean, the battles that you go into are all about the strategies. Like, the encounters that you go through, like the paths that you choose, is all about choosing a strategy and going with it. It's not just about playing out your role in the game.
I mean, having played Wasteland 3, I see everything that you're talking about, because there are definitely, there are battles that I've skipped altogether by using a certain perk, like badass, to shit talk my way out of a situation. Whereas, like, there are others that you cannot do that to, and when those times come up, you're gonna have a squad. You're gonna need a squad that is varied enough to overcome the situation. So, like, yeah, you can take the strategy element out of certain situations, but there are other situations where you're gonna have to come up against the strategy element of Wasteland.
Yeah. It definitely seems like a game where they thought of everything as far as like actions and consequences go. It speaks to what you guys are talking about, just about the variety of ways to approach a situation. But what's impressive to me is like what happens after you've approached the situation and dealt with it, like how it keeps rolling forward with that in impressive ways, and how much your story can branch depending on a decision that you made hours ago, right? You know, like that's what to me speaks to the heart of games like this in a lot of ways.
And to speak to something I mentioned before, I wasn't actually meaning to walk back my praise of the quick save system in Desperados 3. The reason why I think that's important to the game is that there are definitely people that love the idea of Commandos level difficulty strategy games. And then there are a lot of people that just like, man, that would suck if you had to go all the way back to the beginning every time you died in that game, because there are millions of ways it will kill your people. And so I think that the quick save system is a linchpin in that design that makes that game accessible to people that otherwise wouldn't make it 5 minutes in. But it still opens that, but it also keeps that difficulty there for the people that appreciate that style of game.
And then, like, speaking, like, they are two separate games. You can look at them. They're both tactical strategy games. But the thing that Desperados, I think, has over Wasteland is that when you do a stealth kill action or a knockout action or a charm action, there's not a percentage chance. Like, it doesn't say 64% success, like, when you do that. So, like, you're planning your routes turn by turn and you know what's going to happen, where in Wasteland, you could have a 92% hit chance, miss, and you're like, well, that fucking sucks, because like your whole plan was relying on that one sniper shot to hit, and you had such a high chance, and you got fucked over RNG. That's terrible. That's a terrible thing to
part
happen
of the
to you.
strategy formula, though, is having a backup plan in case your first plan doesn't go the way that you want it to. I've gone into situations in Wasteland 3 with an extremely overpowered group and still found myself getting like the shit beat out of me because I'm not planning my attacks the right way and I'm not sending the right people in. Like, it doesn't matter how strong your group is, if you just send them in without any kind of actual tactics behind it, you're gonna get decimated. And yeah, the percentages and stuff like that can suck, and it can be like really disappointing when you've got like a 92% chance to hit an attack. But I also think that that brings some kind of real world tactical like consequence into it, because yeah, you have a 92% chance to hit that attack, but you also have to take all the other stuff into account that the game doesn't really like make you think about, like, oh, the wind and like how far in cover they are and all that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, having a guaranteed hit is nice, but I just think that it adds more depth to the strategy experience because you have to have a backup plan in place or you're putting that particular member of your party in a bad position.
I have to agree with Josh. Like, part of consideration as a general, armchair or otherwise, is what happens when the plan goes foobar, right? You need a fallback plan. You need to be able to, and if your fallback plan gets fucked up, then you need to be able to pivot. And I think that's kind of the fun of these games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like that Mike Tyson quote: "Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face."
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
perfect. Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong,
Quote.
Desperados looks great. It looks like a great strategy game. I just have a lot of love for Wasteland.
I mean, they're both excellent games. Like, you know, this is a pretty stacked category this year.
This is a big year for strategy games.
I have absolutely zero things against Wasteland 3. It's but I love it for very different reasons. Like, it's just plain cool, and the freedom that it gives you to not only play from the get-go, but also adapt to bad things.
Chris, do you want to make the case for Factorio?
No.
Okay.
I second everything that Hawkins said about Wasteland.
Okay, well, I'll be here to make the case for Factorio then. It's not really a strategy game like these other games are, right? But it is a strategy game. It's kind of an art. It's part RTS, part city builder, part factory builder.
Little tower defense in there.
Yeah, a little bit, but not really. But
It's this cool kind of melting pot.
yeah, it's an innovative take on a lot of these genres.
It's kind of built its own genre, the automation.
That's
what
it.
it's called.
Yeah.
Automation
Yeah, that's true.
is the special sauce of Factorio, and it takes what would have been kind of a basic sort of gameplay loop, completely throws it on its head. Because there's like that other element of when the auto, like if you have like a conveyor belt going, but then one of the machines is out of fuel, you know, it just adds another layer of problem solving that I think's really unique, that we don't see very often. I don't think it's gonna win this category, but I think it definitely deserved to be mentioned. It's also one of the few multiplayer games in this category. But yeah, Factorio is very cool. Deserves some love.
I definitely need to play that after our deliberations this year.
Yeah. Maybe before Game of the Year vote. Would be nice.
I'd like to express some appreciation, having looked at Josh's review. I'd like to express some appreciation for XCOM Chimera Squad for what looks to be baby's first XCOM, is probably what it looks like.
It is very much baby's first XCOM. Yeah, no, if you want to talk some more about that, Ozzy, you can, and then I'll back you up on that.
No, go for it, because I actually have not played it.
Yeah, no, it's Chimera Squad is like, it's kind of a weird mashup, to be honest. Like, and yeah, I like the way that Ozzy kind of broke that down. It is like a baby's first XCOM. I also really liked my sub for it was tactical discount, because it's kind of like a discounted version of the XCOM formula. It brings some interesting new things to the genre, but at the end of the day, it's a lot more forgiving than like typical XCOM. So I think if you're looking for a good like strategy game that kind of forces you to be okay with your consequences and stuff like that, then it's a good way to go. I don't think it's the best strategy game out there. It definitely lacks some of the big things that make the XCOM series so impactful as a strategy game, like permadeath. But I think that overall, it does a good job of exploring the feeling of XCOM while kind of giving you a more focused way to dive into it. Because diving into XCOM itself can be really, really overwhelming. Like, you have all of this stuff to worry about, creating your own soldiers, like giving them names and like customizing them and stuff. And you can ignore all that, but it's kind of part of the process. And with Chimera Squad, they take all of that away. Like, it's just predetermined soldiers, and then you kind of just mix and match like their weapons and stuff as you need to. So you still get the management side of things, but you don't have to worry about all the other under the hood stuff. So you can focus more on getting out there and just diving into the game itself. And it also does a good job with some of the mechanics. Like, one of the things that's always been the bane of XCOM players is what Greg mentioned in Wasteland 3, that percentage chance to hit. There have been so many times I've been playing an XCOM game and I'll have a 98% chance to hit a headshot and I miss it. And it's like, you've been through how many encounters at this point and you can't hit this headshot? And it's really infuriating. But Chimera Squad includes a mechanic, and it might have been in previous XCOM games, I can't remember, but it includes a mechanic that allows you to essentially manually aim your character's weapon instead of just leaving it up to the percentages, which is a nice change of pace and is a real nice way to kind of welcome people into that strategy outlet that the XCOM series kind of focuses on. So yeah, I think that's definitely worthy of having a nomination here. I think it's great as like a baby's first XCOM, and it's a good way for people to cut their teeth on just strategy games as a whole that kind of help you dive deeper into what they are without being overwhelmed.
I really like the schlockiness of XCOM Chimera Squad. It feels like a really, really well done mod of XCOM in the way that it's like somebody was like, what if Miami Vice but XCOM? And the characters, I think, are one of my favorite parts of that, because A, it lets you play as aliens for the first time in the series, and B, some of these aliens are just ridiculous. Like, the personalities of the squaddies that you have in that game make me sad that well, maybe there's a mod out there for this game, but make me sad that there's not like a Lethal Weapon saxophone sting after some of their commentary.
That's why I'm not even mad about the whole thing about you can't make your own like player built squads anymore. If you're gonna actually give these guys personality, then go nuts.
Yeah,
Like-
no, yeah, absolutely.
It's a silly game, and I mean, like, I agree with you. It's not the strongest XCOM game, but it is a great diversion.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a good way to explore this series if you never have and you're not really sure where to jump in or if you'll like it.
What do we think of? Because I'm looking at Gears Tactics, which is also on here. What do we think of that? Because I feel like that was
boring.
It continues
Ouch.
the story of the Diaz family, which is what everybody was
God,
looking for.
just enough.
Oh no!
Get out of here.
Did they explore another ancillary character? Because I already went through that with
Yes,
Judgment. and I'm done
they
with
did.
that.
They're like, didn't you wonder what Kate Diaz's second cousin was up to?
Always more Kate Diaz all the time. Diaz
Just give
family.
me more
for the
Kate
win.
Diaz, Gears. God,
The gameplay was great though.
it is a good game, but
Yeah, I don't
You
care
can
about
make
Katie.
tactical.
Oh my
You
god.
can
it's
make
actually well made. Graphics are good. There's nothing wrong with it. But
Boss
if we're
battles
talking
are great.
tactics, we're talking Fey tactics.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
Are we ready to put this to a vote at this point then?
Yeah, we can put to a vote.
I don't play a lot of strategy games, if at all. Not really my scene. But Wasteland 3 had a lot of appeal to me, especially when I was reading Josh's review. Like, I was like, oh, this sounds like something that I might actually pick up and try out. Out of all the games that were mentioned, Crusader Kings 3 also sounded interesting to me, but the fact that TJ was like, you know, the reviewer behind those and he thought other games were far superior to it kind of lowers it in my mind. So I'm going with Wasteland 3.
Crusader Kings 3 is a good story building sim. I don't know if I don't respect it as much as a strategy game as I do an emergent narrative game.
Mm-hmm. And an incest
fair enough.
simulator, right?
Yeah, and then it's a simulator.
Yeah, I mean, I have to, like, I love Wasteland 3. I've been playing it on the Xbox. It's a fantastic game. I just feel that it's really heavily stacked against Desperados because it has so many more underlining mechanics with its RPG elements and its character builds and its weapons and classes and dialogue options and stuff like that. So I feel like but I feel that heavily leans more toward the RPG element of it than pure, if you're talking pure strategy, nothing but pure strategy, I have to go with Desperados 3.
This is tough for me. I love strategy games in all shapes and sizes. Turn-based, real-time. Fey Tactics sounds awesome, but Josh has been talking up Wasteland 3 to me all year. I played the first game. In fact, I interviewed the people who made it for a book a few years ago, so this series means a lot to me. And the layers that Josh did a really good job of kind of unpacking really sold me on it. I'll go Wasteland 3.
Okay, Steve.
I'm going Desperados 3.
Desperado.
Chris.
I vote for Wasteland 3.
EJ.
And then by Desperados. I really love Wasteland 3, and I will happily stand in that camp on some of these other votes because I really think it's a great game.
Yeah, some of our absentee votes. Sam voted for Crusader Kings 3, and Donovan voted for XCOM Chimera Squad.
This was a packed year for strategy games.
Yeah, these are all, like, everything we've mentioned, very good games.
Even
Like,
Gears.
even Gears Tactics, not like just the
I've heard great things about the gameplay. It's just this.
I don't give a damn about that story anymore. That's
mean,
really
If you want to check out my whole thing on Fate Tactics and the old school throwback, I didn't waste the words here because there were other strategy games I liked better, but that's a great one too.
Mhm. Bill.
Wasteland 3.
Josh is Wasteland 3, right?
Yeah, I mean, the series means so much to me, and the literal birth of the post-apocalyptic strategy RPG. So I gotta give my series props, man. It's also what got me into this industry.
That's right.
This series is also what got me into this industry, so lots of love to it.
That's right.
Josh, have you written a How to Wait in Wasteland 3 guide yet? You should find a way, man.
I don't think I have.
I removed that
slipping.
project.
Ozzy.
Wasteland.
Wasteland 3.
So why is Wasteland allowed to be part of strategic games when it's in?
We're not getting into this, Greg.
But Final Fantasy can't be an action RPG. Just
Dang it.
It
No.
was.
doesn't.
It
No, I
was an
couldn't
action
nominate it for
RPG.
action game. You said no. You said no
Yeah,
action.
you
adventure.
said you
adventure.
just said action RPG. God, why we're not even in the
I just think
different
it's
video,
hypocrisy
Greg.
is funny. I just
Don't
think
drag-
hypocrisy is funny. That's all.
Uh-oh, here it comes. Yep, overruled.
Hypocrisy.
Don't bring up shit from other videos people aren't even gonna understand.
But watch our other videos, please.
Please watch our video on action adventure game where we give it to a very deserving game.
True. It's an action RPG, so it doesn't count as an action adventure game.
That's it. Thank you, Greg. Wow.
This
you figured
Wasteland
it
3
out.
is
You're
a
fighting and I'm
strategic
scared, so going back to
strategic
desktop
RPG,
recording.
so it shouldn't count as a strategy game,
I'm going
Hold
to
on.
vote.
right? I mean,
I'm gonna
that's
get-
the that's
all
the
we need
argument,
is my
right?
vote,
I got an
Greg.
argument.
Shut
That's all I
up.
wanted to know.
Holy crap! Just shut up.
That's all I wanted to roll. Judge can roll hypocrisy. That's fine.
God, you're so fucking annoying. Okay.
I like being called dumb on these awards for an opinion. It's great.
It's not dumb. I just called you annoying. We got 11 votes in. All we needed was me to say my vote and we were done. Then you bring up Final Fantasy. Is that not annoying?
Hit the gavel. Hit the gavel.
That's a good summation.
Yeah, just
Wasteland 3 is my vote, and it wins 3 times. Best strategy game of 2020. Well done, Josh. You made a very good case.
I must have dreamed 1,000 dreams.
The world you see now is a very scary place.
Haunted by a million screams.
Democracy, equality, and freedom all died when the bombs fell.